Welcome to From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. On today's show, we're going to be talking about sports, education, entertainment, faith, and family, and how those things separately or combined will impact our lives. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show. Before we get started, as I do every episode, I want to give honor to God, who's the head of my life, because without him, nothing that I do would be possible. Not as a professional, not as a husband, as a father, anything. So I want to make sure that I do that. And if you weren't able to see previous episodes of From the 80s View, you can watch them on my website at cedricmbrown.org, or I'm on LinkedIn, and you can get me on my LinkedIn page. You can do that. We have an exciting guest on our show today. He's a young man that has been inspirational in my life in just a short period of time that we have known one another. He is a Villanova graduate. He's the author of Race Against Race: My Journey in Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. He's a public and motivational speaker, and he is beginning a show, mainline TV 21 network show this June. Bodine Sanders, welcome to the show.
Dr. Brown, can you hear me? Testing.
I got you. I got you loud and clear. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Man, we just, you and I and our two other kings of sports brothers, Dr. AJ Anderson and Dr. Tim Felton, just finished doing Mr. Mike Haney's 60 Minutes in Black America show. And now I have the pleasure to kind of, have the brilliance of Bodine Sanders to myself. And the one thing that I want you to do, as briefly as you can, Bo, is, tell everybody about your journey, right? And you had the influence of a former Hall of Fame professional football player that spoke into you, that led to you being an author and some of the things that you're doing. Tell our viewers about that.
Well, it's great. That's a great question, because only a select few people recognized that experience that I had. And I knew you would appreciate it because of your sports expertise and experience. I believe it was in 2007, I'm going to say 2008, when I had the opportunity to attend. Howie Long invited myself and a few other Villanova alumni down to Townsend University. His youngest son, little Howie, most people know of Chris, his oldest son, and Kyle, his second oldest son, who were professional football players. They know of them, but they're not, most folks don't know how he had a younger son who did not play football. He played lacrosse. And we were at Townsend, and we're tailgating, and one of our fellow alumni, actually the person who recruited Howie Long to Villanova, Mr. Bob Capone, decided to tell Mr. Howie Long my story. And Mr. Capone was a great storyteller. He was, Mr. Capone was Italian. He talked with his hands. We have a lot of similarities in that respect in terms of heritage.
Sure.
And Howie heard my story, and Howie said, he looked me in my eye and he said, "You ought to put that on paper." And by that point, Howie had made movies in Hollywood. You know, he had starred in a movie as a protagonist with, it was called Broken Arrow with John Travolta. You might remember that movie, right? He played one of the bad guys. Yep. So this guy is a Hall of Famer, Hollywood, you know, star, all the works. He looks me in my eye and tells me to put it on paper. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Write a book." And he proceeded to tell me why I should put my story on paper, because his wife at the time, Diane, was writing her first book. Okay. So he had experienced what she was going through. And he had collaborated with some book projects, one of them being specifically how to football for dummies. Remember that the dummies book processes where you
for everything, yeah.
Dummies for everything, right? Yep. So he had collaborated with a book in that regard. So I asked him, and he gave me his advice, and he told me, he said 5 things, the reason why I should write my book. And next thing you know, my daughter turned 14, and I said, now is the best time to do it. So I began that journey when she turned 14. I published my book in December of 2020, January of 2021, because usually you have 2 dates, yes, right? An ebook date or a paperback date, and then the hardcover date. Yes, sir. So December of 2020, January of 2021. Well, and the rest is history.
And your story is so amazing, Bo. And I know it, you know, intimately and personally, because you know we speak, you know, quite often. You started in a very humble beginnings of Jacksonville, Florida, right? And
no question.
And in, you know, not just football, but in track and field as well. Tell us a little bit about those humble beginnings down in Jacksonville, Florida. And, you know, you went from one culture there, and then kind of talk us into your collegiate culture, being at Cheney University, the oldest HBCU in United States history, right? On to Villanova. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I opened my book with the prologue is called Nightmare Race. And I talk about how when I graduated high school, I did not receive a scholarship to play football, nor did I receive a scholarship to run track. Track wasn't really something that I did to try to earn a scholarship. Track is something I participated in order to maintain during the off season of football to stay in shape and improve my skill. Sure. Basketball was not as big in Jacksonville back then. I graduated high school in 1983. Our second religion in Florida, in the South, was football. Believe it or not, the second most popular sport in Florida is track. Mm-hmm. Then basketball pulled up to third, and soccer was making its way and moving into the position of, hey, we want to be considered, in the top 4 or 5 sports, baseball being one of them as well. Sure. So when I didn't receive a scholarship from high school to go to college, I was lost. I had no idea what I was going to do. One thing I knew I wasn't going to do was hang out on the corner. Right? So I got a job, J.C. Penney's, during that summer that I graduated high school, and I continued to work out, hoping and praying that something would happen. And lo and behold, I was thrown a Hail Mary, is the way I describe it in my book. But there was divine intervention. And through the power of my sister, my godmother, and close friends, I was able to get an opportunity to attend college at Cheney University, the oldest HBCU in the United States, in the suburbs of here in Philadelphia. I was there one semester. I got an opportunity to visit Villanova, which is about 10 miles away, also in the suburbs. And I fell in love with the opportunity because Villanova dropped his football program after Howie Long got drafted to the Oakland Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And they dropped it for 3 years. School and the alumni was in an uproar. They finally got it back, but they dropped from Division One Power Conference football to Division One AA.
Mm.
Cheney was a Division Two program. I wanted to play big time football. That's the only reason I transferred and left Cheney. I love Cheney. Cheney gave me my first opportunity to attend college. I was the first male on my mom's side to attend a 4-year college.
Wow.
The first,
Yes,
right? So 90% of the women in my family on my mom's side went to college. 90%. No one else went off to college. So it was a big deal. And so I love Cheney. It was a great atmosphere, great environment. I grew up in an all-black environment. But after I returned from that visit to Villanova over the Easter break weekend, I ran into a guy by the name of Andre Waters, who is a strong safety for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm.
And Andre was a senior when I was a freshman at Cheney. Andre was from Pahokee, Florida. And we had a small crew of guys who played football at Cheney. We called ourselves the Florida Boys crew, mm-hmm. that we tend to hung together. And so he was kind of the elder statesman. I never got a chance to play with him because I started my career in the spring semester, mm-hmm. right? January of 1984. And he was the first person I ran into, and I told him about my weekend at Villanova, and he looked at me and he said, "Go for it, transfer." I thought he was going to say, "Oh, no, don't do it. You're here, you're home, you're comfortable." Nah, he said, no, go for it. He saw the opportunity, and he in himself did the same thing. Andre Waters didn't, right? He is Cheney University. He didn't play ball at Michigan or Penn State or Maryland or UCLA or USC or Florida. He's at Cheney. Right. This guy went on to walk on as a walk-on football player for the Philadelphia Eagles and became a pro football player and an all-pro football player.
All-pro.
So the advice he gave to me, he took that same advice.
Absolutely.
And did it himself. And look what he did. And God rest his soul, rest in peace. Unfortunately, he got some CTE from the head, concussions, and he passed on. But I'll never forget Dre. We called him Dre. I'll never forget him because he gave me some advice that changed my life.
And before we go to break, Bo, with that, right, you've had some individuals that have had success in their own right. Howie Long, Andre Waters, both Dr. Julius Erving was a part of your life growing up. You were a part of his extended family. What is it like, before we go to break, what is it like having individuals like that to give you advice, to lend a ear to hear, but to be someone that you can look to in their success, and the advice that they've given you made you the success that you are today, with your help and God's help, but have given you that opportunity. What is that like?
Oh, it's incredible. I was young, naive, wet behind the ears, green, whatever you want to call it. I had no idea, no clue. I grew up, again, in the South. Jacksonville is basically a big rural area. It's not like New York City, the Boogie Down Bronx,
Oh
right?
no, not that. You know, that's
Right?
that's where Doc Brown's from. That's where CB's from. Right.
Right? It's not the Boogie Down Bronx, right? So I'm a country boy, plain and simple. I'm a country boy. So to have a person like Mr. Julius Irving, who's from Long Island, Roosevelt, right near Hempstead, right near Queens, and that experience, right, that city, fast-paced experience. Sure. Howie Long, who grew up in Boston, right? Charles Barkley, who we called CB1, by the way, because there was another CB, Connolly Brown, who was one of my classmates who was on the basketball team from Houston. He's from Orange, Texas, but is outside of Houston. So, but to have those, I mean, I met Grover Washington Jr. You're talking jazz, right? Music, right? I had a number of people, but not just those elites. There were people on campus, Bobby Lambert, Don DeCarlo, Bill McDonough, I mean, Gene Fazio. There were a number of people in my life that played a major role to help guide me because I had no idea. I was living day by day.
Well, you know, it's always great to look back at the ones that poured into you, right? And it sounds like you've had great mentors and great role models. Stay with us, Bo. You know, we're going to go to a break. Stay with us. You're watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. We'll be right back after this break.
Renting is everything. It's style at your doorstep, off the runway and into your closet. It's every trend you've been dying to try and every designer you've yet to discover. It's wearing it your way every time and making it count everywhere you go. It's never worrying about what to wear because something new is always coming your way. That's why renting is everything. New styles, top designers, all for a flat monthly fee. Start your subscription at renttherunway.com.
Slow roasted over hickory fire and pulled by hand. This is the way pit pork has always been done. Pulled pork lovers, rejoice. The smoky old days are back at the Smoke Shack. From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
Water. It's everywhere. We drink it, we bathe with it, we cook with it. Coffee's made with water. Toilets won't flush without it. It's used for washing clothes, dishes, utensils, pots, pans, floors, and our teeth. Plants and crops need water. Animals drink it, and fish need it too. And don't forget, we can have a lot of fun in the water. Water. What would we do without it?
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back. You're watching From the AD's View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Be sure to watch us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can reach me on my website at cedricmbrown.org. Let's bring back our guest, Mr. Bodine Sanders. Bo, we just finished talking about mentors and role models and things like that. And when I think about Howie Long and I think about professional football and things like that, you were in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and the Eagles just made one of the biggest investments that they have in franchise history in their major contract of Jalen Hurts. As an Eagle fan, as a longtime football fan, what are your takes on that? What do you have to? And Jalen Hurts is one of the first black men to have all females around him and all of his business dealings. What do you think about Jalen Hurts and what the Philadelphia Eagles have done?
Well, number one, it shows the level of intelligence that he has. It also shows his upbringing, the foundation with his parents and family and friends had a powerful impact on his development. Obviously, he played football at one of the best, top 5 best colleges in the country, right? Alabama. Then he transferred and went somewhere else. But because he saw a better opportunity. But his foundation is solid, right? He hasn't made any major mistakes. But when he publicized, because he didn't have to,
right?
When he publicized that not only is he represented by a female agent, and then he went on to have females in every position from marketing to social media, to PR to all of it. It goes to show that he knows how to read the room.
Absolutely.
He can see, he has foresight. He can see where this is going, right? He can see that women are playing a very important role in every aspect of life. And it's not just sticking with the status quo of this guy and that guy and boom, boom, boom. Right? Who's the best qualified? So he hired and partnered and is collaborating with those who he feel can do the job and do the best job. And so if they just happen to be women, that's great. And it just shows a level of insight. So I'm excited. I think the Eagles know, right? You don't put that kind of money into a player if you don't think he's well worth it, not just on the field, but off the field. Because as an AD, you're not just in charge of the student athletes when they're just on the court or on the field or on the ice. You're responsible for when they're in the classroom,
in the community,
when they're on the campus, and when they're in the community. So that shows me that they're all in because they know he's the total package, and he's not going to disappoint them in areas that he can control.
Okay, so
if that makes sense,
it does. And so the Eagles have had, several dynamic quarterbacks. They and black quarterbacks. Right. So,
I played catch with Randall Cunningham.
So how does he stack up to a Randall Cunningham, a Donovan McNabb, a Michael Vick? How will Jalen Hurts? What will his legacy be after it's all said and done? Will his legacy be the same as those 3 other dynamic quarterbacks that the Eagles have had?
Well, if his choice of choosing his team of all women, right, if that is an indicator of what his potential is in the future, oh, the future is bright, because there's that saying, we've seen that movie before.
Absolutely.
So I think he's a smart guy. He's watched the tape of Randall Cunningham. He's watched the tape of Donovan McNabb. He's watched the tape of Michael Vick on and off the field. So he should already know how to steer away from trouble, how to stay in his lane, right? And if he does just that, he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. Just stay in your lane. Oh, he should have a great career, because the general manager is all about winning. And that general manager is going to do everything in his power to win again. He's not resting on that championship a few years ago. That general manager wants to win now. So he's got a great shot.
Right. We're with Mr. Bodine Sanders. You're watching From the 80s View. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Brown. Bo, another question for you real quick. The NBA Finals are going on right now. 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. It might be 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Miami Heat are at the Denver Nuggets. You have, the Joker, Nikola Jokic. You have Mr. Murray. You have a host of other players that are playing in the Denver Nuggets, and they're playing good quality basketball. What do you see? And what's Bodine Sanders' final prediction about that?
Well, listen, we just finished another show earlier, and I was listening to the banter back and forth. Yes, I am a Floridian by birth.
Okay, all right.
I am not a homer, meaning I am not rooting for Miami just because they're in Florida, right? They're a part of Miami, Florida.
Sure.
I'm rooting for Miami because I like their players. I like their leadership, the ownership, the leadership. Eric Spoelstra, the coach. Alonzo Mourning. And who's the general manager? Pat
Riley.
Pat Riley.
Mm-hmm.
A fellow Villanova alum, Easy Ed Pinckney, played for Miami when Pat was running it, the show down there as well. Mm-hmm. So I've heard great stories about his leadership. But I got to tell you, as a former, we're retired athletes, right? Absolutely. We're retired.
Absolutely.
That Utah team is no joke.
The
Denver team is no.
You're right.
They're no joke. Those guys can ball. So I anticipate. I want Miami to win because I'm from Florida, but knowing the little I know about basketball from being around winners, Villanova, 3 national titles.
Right. You had to get that in there. Right. Beat Georgetown. When they had Patrick Ewing, right?
Yeah, my freshman year, we beat Georgetown. Knowing basketball the way I followed it, Denver, because of their center, I don't think Miami has a plan. They got to show it, but I don't think they have a plan to stop Jokic.
I don't think they have an answer for him either. Nikola is
he
made a case that he should have been a 3-time MVP. He's making that case. And you mentioned Pat Riley, right? Most people don't know that Pat Riley played against the 1966 Texas El Paso Miners. He played against a team that was all black in the NCAA championship. He played against them, And Pat Riley he wasn't a turkey out there.
Oh no, he was good.
A baller.
He was a
baller. But they had that group, and that coach made up in his mind. He said, all the things that they went through in that 65, 66 season, going in and out down there in the South, right? Going in and out of different schools and things like that. He said, I'm going to make up on my mind, because he had two dynamic Caucasian individuals on that team as well. I think three. And then a young Latino gentleman on that squad as well. And he said, I'm making up my mind. He goes, you guys brought us here, but I'm going to do something that's never been done. I'm going to play all of my black players, and they end up winning that national championship.
Well, you because listen, you're a doctor. Come on, you have that PhD for a reason, right? Listen, you've now come full circle in talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Because that's my expertise, right?
That's what you do, Bo. That's what you do.
And so we talk about that coach and his foresight to know that game meant something, because Pat was playing for Kentucky.
Yes, he was.
Adolph Rupp, I believe, was the head coach.
Adolph Rupp, yes, sir.
And he was not going to have any players of color on his team at all. And he felt like his team was going to dominate, because he didn't understand that the players on that diverse team was learning so much about life off the field, which prepared them and helped them build great relationships, where when they got on the court, the competition factor was not part of the soup.
It wasn't part of the equation at all.
It wasn't part of the soup, right? Mm-hmm. So those guys truly loved each other and played for each other and didn't complain about playing time, because they recognized that game meant more to them than it did proving that they could win their way. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that's part of the journey and part of the conversation is how I like to share DEI stories, right? I'm going to hold up this book, folks. This is I Am Third by Gail Sayers, right? Most of you know this book by the movie called Brian's Song.
Brian's Song. Mm-hmm.
But this he wrote the book first. Gail Sayers, this is his autobiography. He wrote this first. That book, that movie, we grew up watching come on, you remember ABC Movie of the Week?
Oh, yeah, right? Absolutely.
Prior to football season, we all watched Brian's Song, and we watched the relationship between Gail Sayers and Brian Piccolo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Another book of inspiration. Branch Rickey, what did he do? Come on, number 42. When you think 42, you ain't thinking about me. You ain't thinking about Ronnie Lott. You're thinking about Jackie Robinson.
Absolutely.
What did Branch Rickey do? He made a conscious decision to have Jackie Robinson play pro baseball. It changed the world.
Changed the world.
Another person we just lost recently, Bill Russell, and his relationship with Red Auerbach.
Yep.
Right? So I believe in the power of sports. I believe in, and we've had this conversation, I believe in spiritual foundation and a sports foundation. I don't wear my spiritual foundation on my sleeves the way you do, but I wear it.
Yes, sir.
And I do it subtly, right? I do it subtly, right? And so that's my way of getting people to understand that what we do, and I've learned this, as I've gotten older, right? Mm-hmm. As Warren Sapp so smartly said, when I was 25 without a kid and a conscience, I was out of control.
Right.
But as you get older, you're supposed to get wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the things that I use as inspiration to help people understand how we all are in this together and we all have a positive point to share and play a powerful point to play in what we're trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. And before we wrap the show up, Bo, you are a published author, right?
Yes,
And the name of your book, can you share with the audience what the name of your book is, sir?
absolutely. The name of my book is Race Against Race, My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. You can find my book on Amazon. It is a global 5-star Amazon bestseller. But one thing I want to leave you with is, in my book, one of the first people that I talk about when I arrived at Villanova was the athletic director by the name of Ted Aceto. Ted Aceto played a very important role. And it's obviously apropos for this show. Right? He was the athletic director of Villanova, and he recognized the talent that I had in me that I didn't even recognize.
Sure.
He offered me to leave Cheney and come play on a D1 football program.
Sure.
I didn't see that. It was a dream, but I didn't see it. He saw it. So I write about Ted Aceto in my book because he played a very important role. And you know how important your role is as an AD from an AD's view.
Thank you for that.
The power and the influence you have on young people and people in general, their parents and their family members, right?
Community members. Yep.
And that's something we're working towards sharing with the at-large community.
We will. And and Bo, one thing about you is you're a very inspiring individual, right? And you've become my big brother, right? We are bringing forth to our viewers and to the communities at large. We're bringing forth a product that we're calling Kings of Sports, the divine collaboration. We're modeling it off of Kings of Comedy, and we're going to be, in cities, across the country, right, sharing our stories in faith, and sharing our stories in sport, in sport management, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and from a positive standpoint, right? Because, Bo, one thing about you is nothing in your book talks about how somebody kept you down or how they kept you back, or you talk about how in the midst of some of the things that you go through, the diversity of you leaving from Florida, going to the suburbs of Philadelphia to Villanova, enhanced Bo. It enhanced Bo Sanders. It enhanced everything that you are. But before we leave, Bo, tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, please.
Oh, it's easy. You can go to my website and shoot me an email from the website. If you don't have a pen and paper in hand,
it's on the screen right now.
Right, go to my website. And you can find me on social media, Facebook. Hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message, and we can start a conversation. It's easy to find me because I'm in a unique position. Most people, when they hear Bodine Sanders, they go, "Are you related to Dion?" Or most people go, "Do you know Bo Jackson?"
Bo Jackson, right.
So it's easy. Remember when back in the 2000s when the technology was starting to spread its wings around amongst the masses, and people say all you got to do is Google me. I don't really want to be that person, but just Google me.
Yeah. Well, and I can say to all my viewers and anyone that will see the episode of this podcast is that if you are looking for an inspirational motivational speaker that is giving young people and more experienced individuals on the professional level, right? So from intercollegiate athletes to even the high school athletes, all the way up to anyone in any kind of profession, because he's
Corporate America,
corporate
absolutely.
America. He's dealt with law enforcement and things like that. Please reach out to him because it's worth the time that he's going to spend with those individuals, because he's going to pour into them to give them something special that they can take away from that meeting with him. Hey, Bo, I
Thanks,
really
brother.
appreciate you being on this show, man, and everything that you bring to the show. And I'm so looking forward to KOS, man, Kings of Sports. I'm looking forward to that and our tour across this country to share our stories and our journeys, man. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, you have a standing invitation to appear as an AD guest on my TV program that's about to jump off this month. It's called Blueprints. And I will be asking your insights. Give me your blueprint on diversity, equity, and inclusion from an athletic director's perspective. That'll be the very first question. And that's the question I ask everybody. Every guest will get that first question. And then the last question, right? There'll be other questions in between. But the last question will be, what are you hopeful for as an AD? So those are the two questions I want you to ponder. But you have a standing invitation to my TV show.
I got you, big bro. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank tonight's guest on our show, Mr. Bodine Sanders, for being with us and pouring into us all of his insight and the experience along his journey. Don't forget to join us each Sunday evening at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern for more open and honest discussions from the AD's view. Good night and God bless.